the syllabus, so not topic, not function, not grammar form, but the task itself. Task performance is a catalyst for focusing attention on form, not the other way around. It's not that today we're going to talk about the simple task and let's do some stuff that will make that more interesting. It's the other way around. A simple task may be necessary if we're going to do a certain task. Crucially, assessment is in terms of task performance. So it's not just that teaching is about tasks, it's that testing is about tasks as well. So there's that connection. Task selection is shaped by real-world activities of relevance to learners and their target needs. Tasks play an essential role in engaging key processes of language acquisition. So these are all criteria for what a task is. Okay, so the second perspective, classroom-based research. Unlike a lot of research on tasks that's been done in laboratories under neat, orderly conditions, classroom-based research attempts to explore the possibilities of tasks in action in the messy, unpredictable world of the classroom, which is thought to be much more helpful, really, to the problems we face. Some examples: Foster explored negotiation for meaning in the classroom. Kumaravadivelu studied learners' perceptions of tasks. Gonzalez-Llore also looked at computer-assisted learning in Spanish, learning Spanish at the University of Hawaii. So all of this is about research that is focused on in the classroom, not in the laboratory. The third research perspective, learner beliefs about language learning. Bernat and Gvozdenko concluded that learners' notions about language learning likely affect motivation, experiences, and behaviors in the classroom. So their assumptions, their ideas about how language learning should go affects, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, some examples of some of the research. Wendon, Horowitz, Abraham, and Van. Importantly, Little and Singleton found that past experience, both of education in general and of language learning in particular, played a major role in shaping attitudes to language learning. So the connection is clear. Okay, so the study itself, the interviews, they lasted 25 to 35 minutes. They were administered one by one in my very tiny office within 2 weeks of the task-based lessons that we held. They were recorded on a cassette tape player. I wonder if anyone is old enough to remember those. There were some collecting dust in an office, and I thought, wow, okay, I'll use that resource. And then I transcribed them. There were 28 volunteers selected at random. I asked them 9 questions, and these questions were formulated on the basis of various principles that underpin task-based language teaching. For example, how is form taught? Doty and Williams make a distinction between focus on form and focus on forms, which is the more traditional approach, the latter. So how is form taught? How are errors viewed and handled by the teacher? Group and pair work, how much is that used? To what end? How central is the teacher in the classroom? And finally, the teachers promoting learner responsibility and empowerment. So the questions were all based on these sort of principles. Okay, and so what were the questions? Number 1, how important has grammatical correctness been to your foreign language teachers in either the speaking or writing of the students? What do you think about that? So the central role of grammatical correctness. Number 2, how much have your foreign language teachers corrected their students' grammatical errors in the classroom? What kinds of errors have they corrected? What do you think about that? 3, how have you learned grammar? Many teachers go over a major grammar point, say, the present perfect, have the students practice it, and then move on, assuming it has been learnt and will not be forgotten. Have you experienced this sort of thing? How do you feel grammar should be covered? Number 4, how much have your teachers used group or pair work in the foreign language classroom? How useful do you feel that is being? How much do you think it should be used in the classroom? 5, learners should take responsibility for their own learning both inside and outside the classroom. That's a big statement. Have your teachers tried to encourage this? What do you think of this statement? What does it mean? Often students have different interpretations of what that even means. Number 6, have your teachers generally used a given textbook and not other materials, or rather a mix of materials? what about their own material? So what is your view of this? Number 7, have your teachers used materials or topics that you feel are really interesting? Have they taught you vocabulary and grammar that you feel you will need? This speaks to the importance of a needs analysis and the sort of tenets of English for specific purposes. How much have students been exposed to that or not? Number 8, what have been the most successful teaching techniques or ideas you have experienced in the past? So here I was just eliciting all manner of ideas that they thought might have worked well. Finally, number 9, what did you think of the classes we did with the speaking tasks? What purpose, if any, do you think they served? Do you think a language class made up of entirely such tasks would be effective or beneficial? I was curious to see what they thought. Were they just fun or useful or neither? What did they think? And I collected and categorized their answers looking at these 3 areas, as I mentioned before: experience of learning form, teachers' classroom management, and impression of the speaking tasks that they had just performed. Learning form. Well, learners generally describe a learning experience in which grammatical correctness, grammatical forms were in the forefront. Some thought this represented an important foundation to language learning, while others found it dry and unmotivating. Albert, not his real name or her real name, I don't even know at this point, said, when we learned a new tense, we came to know everything about it. So I think it's okay, because for me, I like to learn everything about that tense, and I like to know how to use it properly. So he sort of validated the method that had been used for him. David spoke of a set of immersion French lessons in which forms were covered as problems arose in communication, usually through speaking. He described a very motivating and creative classroom atmosphere. This would be more like what happens in a task-based situation. Students said a number of things with regard to classroom management. We rather worked individually. We got a task, we had to do it, and we spoke about it. But I don't remember that we did anything like this, pair work or group work. Another said we did group work, more or less, when we prepared for a final exam or a language exam. For example, we were working in groups for speaking exam practice, but sometimes we didn't work in groups because it wasn't needed. So it was all very much about expedience, just before the exam, get ready. I can't think of any good activities that we did, said one, maybe in the first 5 minutes of the class where we would have a bit of a chat with the teacher, and finally, the teacher talks and the student listens and you do work at home, was one strong statement. Annette said, we were given a topic and then we had to give our opinion, but in bigger groups. I don't know why, but it was always in bigger groups of 4 or 5. We talked about a topic like women in society, gave our opinions, and told them to the class. And that was motivating, I think, because everyone has a strong opinion on those kinds of topics. Again, this is more like the task-based sort of paradigm. Reflections on speaking tasks, the 3rd area that I looked at. Dora, not her real name, said, well, it was good for speaking because we could argue and we had options. But I've always had a strange feeling about working in groups because my experience, especially in the grammar school, was that everyone started to speak in Hungarian. Okay, what did you see on TV last week? We didn't do the task properly. Which I think perhaps speaks to getting used to a certain paradigm or perhaps having a sense of discipline about these things. So in conclusion, these learners appear to paint perhaps a grimmer picture of language learning history, of their own language learning history, than Marian Nikolov and her colleagues found. Perhaps because as university students they were more critical, more aware of the drawbacks of what they had experienced. Learners seemed positively disposed towards TVLT, despite language learning histories marked by teacher-fronted, grammar and translation-oriented classroom environments of the type that Nikolov et al. Described. Although some expressed a preference for such practices as translation, form-dominated exercises, and so forth, they did see the benefits of a task-based paradigm. So we've seen that the learner's script is closely linked to learner's beliefs. After all, if a learner expects certain things to happen in the foreign language classroom, she or he presumably also believes that they will work. Bernat and Gvozdenko again said, learners' views about language learning likely affect their motivation, their experiences, and their behaviors. So these views could either hinder or boost their own language learning success. If the learners in this study generally both understand and accept TBLT, then I would suggest that this would speak to their potential success within this rather unique paradigm. So these are my references. If you'd like to get a copy of this, I'd be happy to share it with you. And thank you very much for